This is Honors Geometry Lesson 4.2, Congruence in Triangles. Two geometric figures are congruent if they have exactly the same size and shape. So we've talked about congruent segments. We said two segments are congruent if they have the same length. We've talked about congruent angles, and we said two angles are congruent if they have the same measure. But now we're going to talk about actual geometric figures being congruent. So in two congruent figures, all the parts of one figure have to be congruent to all the parts of the other figure. And we actually say corresponding parts, so that means they're in the same order, same location. When you write a congruent statement for polygons, you have to list the corresponding vertices in the same order. Let me show you what that means. So we're given that triangle ABC is congruent. Let's change colors. ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. So let's just draw a little example of that. So let's say triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. So again, that means it has the exact same size and shape. What they're telling you is angle A and angle D are congruent. They're the same by our congruent statement. We know those are congruent. They're telling us angle B and angle E are congruent. And then finally, of course, angle C and angle F are congruent. Okay, let's try the first example. It says identify all pairs of congruent corresponding parts. And then once we're done with that, we're going to write another congruent statement. So we're given that triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. That's our congruent statement. So by that, they're telling us angle A and angle D are congruent. We can see that right here. So we're going to say angle A is congruent to angle D. They're telling us angle B is congruent to angle E. That's right here. So we're going to say angle B is congruent to angle E. And then finally, make some room here, we're going to say angle C is congruent to angle F. It also applies to the sides. So by this congruent statement, I can see side AB is going to have the same length as side DE. AB goes to side DE right there. So I'm going to write side AB, segment AB is congruent to segment DE. And we're going to do it again. We're going to say side BC is congruent to side EF. And let's go ahead and mark that. BC is congruent to EF. And then finally, we have side AC, and that's going to be here, is congruent to side DF. And that's here. Okay, we're not going to do another one. This take too long. All right, let's look at this example. It says in the diagram we're given that triangle XYZ is congruent to triangle MNL. All right. So I might just want to mark my diagram. I'm given that X is congruent to M, so I might just want to mark that. We'll use colors this time. I'm given that Y is congruent to N. Y is congruent to N. Well, that's going to help. And then finally, we're given that Z is congruent to L. Z is congruent to L. So the first one, number 5, they're asking for the measure. So we're to give it a number. We're looking for the size of angle Y. We can see from our diagram that Y and N are the same, so we can carry the 124 over here. So I'm going to say that's 124. We're looking for the measure of angle M, and you can see from our markings that that's the same size as X, so we're going to say that's 33 degrees. And again, there's no markings and there's an equal sign, so they're looking for a number, and number 7. So they're looking for the length of segment YX. Let's find that. That's right here. It's between the pink and the green. So between the pink and the green over here is an 8. So if NN is 8, we know this is 8. So to answer their question, we're going to say 8. Now we have a segment, we have a congruent symbol. So they're looking for a segment, not a number. So they're saying side YZ right there, and we know that's going to be congruent to segment NL based on our congruent segment statement. And now we're looking for a triangle congruent to L and M. So L goes to Z, so we're going to say Z has to go first, N has to go to Y, and finally M has to go to X. All right. Another theorem I want to talk about is called the third angle congruence theorem. It says if two angles of one triangle are congruent to two angles of another triangle, then we can assume their third angles are also congruent. So let's do a quick sketch. So say I know this is 50 degrees, this is 50 degrees, say this is 100, this is 100. We know that their third angles also have to be congruent. In this case, we know that they're both going to be 30. And we're going to use that right now. It says write a congruent statement for any figures that can be proved congruent. So right now, the only way we know the triangles are congruent is if we have all their pieces, all corresponding parts. So it looks like we have all three angles of both triangles. That's good. And we have two sides. And then the third side, we can assume that reflexive property. They both share that same side. Anything's equal to itself. So let's go ahead and just match up the parts real quick. It looks like on the top triangle, X has the three arcs. So X on the top triangle goes to Z on the bottom triangle. It looks like Y on the top triangle goes to W on the bottom triangle. And finally, it looks like Z on the top triangle has a double arc, and that goes to X on the bottom triangle. Number 12, it looks like we have one angle and two sides, and that's all. And again, right now we have to have all the corresponding pieces matching up. So this one we're going to have to say no, we don't have enough information. All right, last thing, find the value of X. So we're given that this angle and this angle are the same, so I'm going to carry the 70 over there. And so I have 90 plus 70, that's 160. Subtract it from 180, it looks like our missing angle is 20. And last one, we know that this angle is 80 and we can carry it over here. We know this angle is 45, we can carry it over here. Add those together, we get 125, subtract it from 180, that's what, 55? And divide that by 5, it looks like X is going to be 11. All right, please try the practice problems. Let me know if you have any questions.